All right, guys, today I'm going to share 21 more clever quotes with you. As many of you know, I love quotes. If you follow me on social media like Facebook or Instagram, you're going to know that I post a lot of quotes, and I actually put a lot of pictures with these quotes. Pictures that seem like they fit quite well, that are appropriate with the content. And it can take me a long time to harvest just the right photo. In fact, sometimes I think I spend too much time doing it. But as I look back over the years on all these quotes I posted, they're actually something I've taken great pleasure in, and I'm very glad that I've done them because by having done that, I've gleaned a lot of wisdom from them. And so I want to share them with you today on this video. Not all of them, obviously, because I've done this for many years, but I'm going to share 21 with you. And I hope that they leave as memorable of an impression on you as they have me. And I hope they make you think. And I hope they make you take an interest in the people who wrote them or the people who said them. So without any further ado, let's start with the first one. James Barrie is the one we're going to talk about first. James Barrie is the one who wrote Peter Pan. And he once said, "You have been warned against letting the golden hours slip by." Yes, but some of them are golden because we let them slip by. Now, the picture I put on social media with this was these old men in a park, I'm assuming someplace like New York. These old men just sitting around playing chess, and you can tell this is how they whittle away their days with each other, at least, you know. And sometimes some people I know that are much older, they'll get together and have coffee, and they'll talk about whatever it is they like to talk about, and this is how they spend their days. But let me tell you something. These sometimes make the most memorable days because you're cultivating something more than just the minor activity that you're doing. And some people think that golden hours are chock full of really intense activity. And in fact, oftentimes they're not. So the next one is by Ogden Nash. Ogden Nash was an American poet. And he once said, "There's only one way to achieve happiness on this terrestrial ball. And that is to have a clear conscience or none at all." I think the implication here is that if your conscience is something you're always aware of, it's usually because it's not making you feel good about something. So the best remedy to this is simply to have a clear conscience, or like he said, to have none at all, and therefore that's how you'll find happiness. You'll find happiness on both ends of the spectrum, where you just simply don't care what anybody thinks. But these are usually the people who end up in jail at some point, or friendless, or alone. And but maybe that's how they're happy. And the others have a clear conscience. But how many people do you know have an absolutely clear conscience? Which begs the question, how many people do you know can define themselves as happy? So there you have it. The third one is by Ernest Shackleton. Now, oh man, I love Ernest Shackleton. If you've never read South, The Endurance Expedition, I'm going to tell all of you men right now that you need to order that book and read it. It reads like a journal, it reads like a diary, but this man was he completed, well, I say completed, he carried out 3 expeditions to the South Pole in his lifetime. And this is back in the early 1900s, and South has to do with his 1914 expeditions, his last one. It was a failed attempt to cross the entire continent of Antarctica on foot. If you can imagine everything going wrong, that's exactly what happened for Shackleton. Their ship, the Endurance, was crushed in the ice. And his men, 22 of his men, I believe it was 22, were stranded in the South Pole for nearly 2 years, and they did not die. He saved them. But if you can imagine everything going wrong for you, when you trek your way across the continent of Antarctica, the stormiest place on Earth, one of the coldest places on Earth, and you have to backtrack and redirect your steps all the time, that's what happened. Here's what he said about the hardship. He said, "A man must shape himself to a new mark directly the old one goes to ground." A man must shape himself to a new mark directly the old one goes to ground. This is somebody who did not have time to sit around, complain and whine and fuss and bend someone's ear about how things were not fair, about how things were not working out for him. When things did not go right for Shackleton, he didn't dwell on them. Immediately, he set a new course. Immediately, he set his eye on a new mark. Immediately, he gained new direction. This is where it challenges me. I have to ask myself, when things don't go my way, when nothing seems to be going right, do I whine, complain? Do I fuss? Do I burden other people with my complaints? Or do I set a new course? Do I find a new direction? Do I eye a new mark? And that's the important thing to learn from this. The fourth one here is from Samuel L. Jackson, of all people. I'm going to have a laundry list of celebrities here in this one. But Samuel L. Jackson, as you know, this man is in everything now. You can't hardly watch a movie that he's not in. But when he was playing Mace Windu in Star Wars, I think it was Revenge of the Sith, here's something he said afterwards, after the movie came out. He said, "I never asked for anything but a purple lightsaber." George said, "Well, lightsabers are either red or green." I said, "Yeah, but I would like a purple one." Now, if you think about it, lightsabers always were red or green, and he's the only one who ever had a purple one. And here's the thing. Here's what this should tell you. You may not always get what you want, and things may have always been a certain way, but it doesn't hurt to ask for what you want. You just might get it, so take the chance. All right, Robert Duvall. Most people should know who Robert Duvall is. He's a prolific actor, and he's been in many things like Apocalypse Now, The Godfather, and he once said, if you don't have heroes in the beginning, you don't grow. I actually made a video about this, a video about heroes. It's very important to have heroes. And I don't care how old you are, if you're very young or even if you're much older, it's always good to have heroes, people that you can look up to and respect. It's not always wise to get to know them, but it's wise to have a model to look at and know that they are doing something that is worthwhile. You need to have people in your life that inspire you, that motivate you, and hopefully someday you can be a hero in of yourself to somebody else. So if you don't have heroes in the beginning, you don't grow. Aaron Sorkin is our next one. Aaron Sorkin is an American screenwriter and playwright, and I have found out that playwrights oftentimes have the best things to say. They have the most clever things to say. And he once said, he's directed a lot of things. His name's all over things in Hollywood, like West Wing. I think he was a screenwriter for Jerry Maguire. I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that, but he's all over everything. But he once said, "I desperately need the love of complete strangers. That's one reason I overtip. I love when sky caps, waiters, and valets are happy to see me." I'm not so sure this is the way to get love. I think this might have been a little tongue-in-cheek. I'm thinking that he was probably being humorous when he said this, but just bear in mind that just because people appear to love you doesn't necessarily mean they are. You might just be meeting a supply for them. Robert Redford is our next one. Robert Redford, he's a phenomenal actor. He's been in so many things and directed so many good movies. And one of my favorite movies is The Sting. I've probably seen it over 100 times. It came out in 1974. It starred him and Paul Newman. Absolutely my favorite movie of all time. But Robert Redford, a very good-looking man. He said, "When I was a kid, nobody told me I was good-looking. I wish they had. I would have had a better time." What do you learn from this? Oh, I don't know. I just thought it was a good quote. Because when you see his movies, he's kind of like, when you look at Brad Pitt today, he kind of reminds me of a young Robert Redford. And as we both know, these men are good looking, and you think to yourself, they could probably get any woman they want. It's kind of hard to imagine that there was a time that they didn't know that they were good looking. But if you could only imagine. So Mary-Louise Parker is our next one. She's been in many shows like West Wing, Weeds, Terms of Endearment was one of them. No, I don't think she was in that one, but she was in a lot of movies. I think Green Fried Tomatoes might have been one she was in. But here's what she said about honesty. She said that being honest is the goal. I can unzip to a pretty deep level. But what you get today is not necessarily what you'll get tomorrow. I also made a video concerning that one. Also, if you want to go back and look at my video about the painted veil, I talk about this quote in there. And one of the things, what I really like about this quote is that honesty can be quite subjective and objective. You know, what is the truth? What is honesty? Now, there is the truth, and truth is unmovable. Truth is unchangeable. But when people are being honest, are they always telling truth? They may think they are, and as far as they feel at the moment. And that's what you have to be aware of, is that just because someone's honest doesn't mean they really necessarily reflect the way things actually are, and doesn't necessarily reflect how they'll feel tomorrow. So bear that in mind when someone tells you they're being honest. Dr. Ruth Westheimer. I don't know if you remember who she is. I guess I have a grin on my face because growing up, she was a sex therapist, an old lady. She's still alive, by the way. She's 91 now. And she had she made I guess she had a show that came out in 1980. She was all over everything. She's very popular, a very small woman, a very strange voice. And, but I can't remember what her show was called. But it was all about sex, giving sex advice, and it was just sheer entertainment for a young man to watch. It was laughable and almost repulsive at the same time. But this is a woman that looks completely harmless. But here's what she said. You ought to look her up, see just what she looks like to know fully what I'm talking about. Here's what she said. She said, "Yes, I was trained as a sniper in the Israeli armed forces. This was after the Holocaust. I was a very good shooter. I once went with my grandson to a county fair where you shoot a pistol at a clown's mouth. We came home with 12 stuffed animals and a goldfish." Now, when I read that, I was really shocked that this woman was trained as a sniper. It just goes to show you that the harmless-looking ones aren't necessarily so. Be careful about them. Ted Danson, as we all know, I think his name was Mike Malone. Is that right? I don't know if that was right. He was on Cheers for many years. I think Malone was his last name for sure. He's also in a show now called As Good as It Gets. He was in 3 Minute Baby. He's been in a lot of things. But he said something I thought was interesting one time. He said, "Acting was the perfect outlet for a guy like me who's always wondering what it's like to be you." You know what makes me think when I hear this is if someone was to play me in a movie or on television, what would that character look like? Would it be recognizable? Man, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to know, because there's the image and character that I have in my mind of myself, and there's the one that everybody else has, and there's the one the actor would have. And I want to know what kind of person I would be depicted as. Think about that. What kind of person, how would you be depicted by an actor? It's kind of hard to say, right? It's kind of hard to put your finger on, but it does make you wonder. All right, the next one comes from Ferran Adria. He was a head chef at El Bulli in Spain. It's a 3-star restaurant in Catalonia, Spain. And here's what he said one time. This is very, very good. He said, "I used to go to bed thinking, why did one person like it and the other person didn't? One thought it was too much and the other thought it was not enough. Every person," he goes, "it took me 15 years to understand. Every person is a world. It's better not to ask. Otherwise, you're going to end up at the psychoanalyst." And I felt this one really, I had to sit down and think about this one for a while, because I think sometimes I'm a little over concerned with what people think of me, to be quite honest. And that can be enslaving. And it's probably best not to try to figure out why people like you, don't like you, or like what you do or don't do. Don't ask. You do your best, and let it rest at that. Everybody has their own taste and their own opinions. And sometimes it doesn't matter either way. All right, the next one comes from James Lawrence Brooks. Now, he is a writer and director. He has made many funny movies and shows like the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Rhoda. He made Jerry Maguire, Terms of Endearment, As Good as It Gets. Great movie, by the way. And so this is a man who knows funny, all right? But here's what he said. He said, I laugh every day. There are days when my laughs are pretty hollow. Dust comes out of your mouth and your bones make a funny sound, but I'm laughing. This is a man who's decided he's going to be happy. He has decided, I'm going to laugh every day. Make up your mind to make yourself laugh every day. Watch something funny, read something funny, and capitalize on it. Make a decision to be happy every day, or make it at the very least. Don't even focus on whether you're going to be happy or not. Just make yourself laugh in some way or another, and you might find that to be a good source of happiness and comfort. It's good for endorphins, also, by the way. And the next one is by Albert Lawrence Brooks. No relation, as far as I know. Albert Brooks is he's a very funny actor, and he's actually been in a lot of movies that James Lawrence Brooks has been in. Or directed, I'm sorry. He's actually been in a lot of his movies, but as far as I can tell, they're not related. Albert Brooks is actually related to Super Dave Osborne. If you were watching TV back in the 90s, he was a stuntman that everything wrong happened to. He was hilarious, and he had a very dry sense of humor, just like Albert Brooks. Albert Brooks has been in things like Defending Your Life, Private Benjamin. He's got such a dry sense of humor. I probably said that already, but he's a very funny man. And here's what he said. He goes, I'm not a person who I ever thought would do well with a divorce. Not that it can't happen. I just didn't want that. So I waited a long time to meet the right person. Then I finally met someone I was willing to be divorced from. I don't know what there is to learn from that, but I thought it was hilarious. I thought that was very, very witty. Very good. But that's just like Albert Brooks. If you've never seen any of his movies, watch them. Defending Your Life is fantastic. His timing is great. Jimmy Dean is our next one. Jimmy Dean was a country singer. Now, he has been dead for 9 years. He died at 81 years old. But he was a country singer, a television host, and you'll remember him mostly now. People will remember him mostly now because of his sausage. And if you go to the store, you go to buy sausage, you're going to see Jimmy Dean sausage. You hear the commercials. And he once said, you got to try your luck at least once a day, because you could be going around lucky all day and not even know it. There are people who are not even willing to take risks, right? And they're not even willing to try their luck. They'll press their luck, but they won't try their luck. And so it's wise to maybe consider yourself perhaps even a little lucky, and just see what happens. Just take a wait and see approach to things. Maybe you'll be lucky. I actually made a video about that also, about good luck and bad luck. Go back and watch that. All right, George Steinbrenner is our next one. George Steinbrenner, as many people know, was the owner of the New York Yankees, and someone that Seinfeld liked to talk about. Here's something he said I really liked a lot. He said, my dad never let me have an allowance. He gave me chickens. I had to feed them, gather the eggs, and sell them. I kept ledgers. I had to run it like a business. When I went off to military school, I sold the business to my sisters for too much, and they haven't liked me since. This is a man, I tell you what, who had business on his mind since he was a kid, and apparently raising chickens worked for him, and his dad did a good job of making him do something responsible. I wish I could have been that kind of parent. I wish I could have instilled that, or maybe that's more the child's doing than anything else. Maybe put another kid in that same, give someone else that same option, that same alternative, and they wouldn't do the same thing with it. I don't know, but I thought that was interesting. And then my next one is by Charlotte Gray, and I believe Charlotte Gray is a character in a Sebastian Falk book. But nevertheless, this is what she said about cats. Do you have cats? Because I have 2 of them. I like them, but I can't stand them at the same time. You know, cats just have a way of making you feel that way about them. But anyway, here's what Charlotte Gray said about cats. She said, after scolding one's cat, one looks into its face and is seized by the ugly suspicion that it understood every word. and has filed it for reference. Boy, isn't that true? Nothing to learn here. But last time I did this, I had a quote about cats. I thought I'd do it now. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe was a German statesman, I believe, and politician. I don't know much about him, but he said one time, he said, "Know thyself? If I knew myself, I'd run away." That's it. That's a short quote for you today. If I knew myself, if I knew myself, I'd run away. I think there's a lot of people, if they knew themselves, they'd run away. They have a false perception of who they really are. And if they could look into the mirror, if they could bear it, perhaps they'd run away. Make sure you're not that person. And then there's a man named Joseph Cossman. Joseph Cossman is the one who invented the ant farm back in the 1950s, and it became so popular in schools. And this quote, believe it or not, has absolutely nothing to do with ants. But I have a feeling he gained this wisdom by experience. He said the best way to remember your wife's birthday is to forget it once. All right, the next one is by Lord Byron. Lord Byron was someone who lived back in the 18th century. He said, and this is about fame, by the way, so listen to this very carefully. This is very prescient. Fame. He said, what is fame? The advantage of being known by people of whom you yourself know nothing and for whom you care as little. Let me say it again. What is fame? The advantage of being known by people of whom you yourself know nothing and for whom you care as little. This is, I've thought about this a lot. I'm not someone who's starstruck. I've seen popular people before, and I don't really get starstruck. And the reason why is because they're just people like you and me. And if I knew them like their family knows them, I wouldn't think much of them anyway. They don't care if you only stop and realize that they don't really care about you. You care about them because of roles they play on TV and personalities that they have, and they seem like they'd be such likable people, but we don't really know them, and yet people are absolutely crazy. Some people faint, cry, scream, and will do anything to go see them. And in reality, these people don't care anything about you, and why should they? They can't possibly care about everybody. But just keep that in mind. And the next one we have is by Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson wrote a lot of books. He was a journalist. I say he wrote a lot of books. He was more of a journalist than anything else. He pioneered what they call gonzo journalism, where they immerse themselves in whatever they're reporting on. And he was a heavy drug user, just a really heavy drug user. And there's a movie made about him and a book he wrote called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Johnny Depp plays the lead role in it. But he once said, "Call on God, but row away from the rocks." You know, I'm a Christian myself, but even I know that God has no intention in working in your life like a magician. He's not there just to be dictated. And, you should, there's no verse in the Bible that says God helps them who helps themselves, because sometimes you can't help yourself. But in the event that you can do something for yourself, certainly call on God, but you should remain active and being responsible enough to row away from the rocks. All right, my last one is by Admiral Richard E. Byrd. He was a naval officer and explorer. He claimed that he was the first one to reach the North and South Pole by air. It's been disputed, but nevertheless, he is renowned. And I thought this would be a good one to end this on. He said, "Few men during their lifetime come anywhere near exhausting the resources dwelling in them. There are deep wells of strength that are never used." All right? Few men during their lifetime come anywhere near exhausting the resources dwelling in them. There are deep wells of strength that are never used. Don't let that pass you by. Don't let that pass you by. Find out what you're strong at. Find out what you're good at. And cultivate it. Put it to use. because time's ticking and you only get so many chances. All right, guys, I hope you've liked these. I hope they meant something to you. If you have, give it a thumbs up and share it. All right, catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.